Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Ball Watching. I am your host, Justin Graham, and being joined today by a very special guest, Mr. Matt Sebek. I'm going to give a quick intro in for him. So Matt is the Chief Experience Officer, for anybody that is not aware, Chief Experience Officer at City, graduated from SLU High, went on to play soccer at Evansville, go Purple Aces. And prior to City, Matt was working at in the digital space for Asynchrony and also Worldwide Technology. This is a fun fact, Matt, that I was not aware of that Jake added in here. Started the mobile app Rookies that allows baseball fans to create and personalize and print baseball cards within minutes. And then for those of you that have not seen his face before, if you look before the game, he's the guy running around making sure that everything is going perfectly without a hitch for all of our pregame festivities. You'll see him looking like an NFL coach on the sidelines with the headset, making sure that the pyrotechnics are going off. No one's getting lit on fire, taking the people that are bringing the special guests to bring the match ball up and taking them around the stadium. So, Mr. Matt Sebek, how are we doing today?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing great. No, thanks for the intro, Justin. It's funny how in the last 20 years, all these very disconnected parts of my career, I think honestly have all been stepping stones to get to where I am today. So I feel very fortunate to not only be at City, but also to kind of go through the path to get here. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, a perfect segue into that. And speaking of that path to get here, kind of maybe what just generally drove you into the experience space and kind of being the CXO at City? And then how did you learn about the job at City more specifically?
Oh man. So I spent the last 10 years of my career, you mentioned it, at Worldwide Technology and leading their digital parts of the business. So that's mobile application development, business consulting, data and analytics. And that space has grown significantly globally in the last decade. And where we found a real good niche was in retail and restaurant brands. So very fast moving consumer brands like Panera and Papa John's and Jersey Mike's, and these brands that competition and differentiation is everything. So we found a niche in helping guide them through that evolution and transformation, and found a lot of success doing that. And one of my customers was Enterprise Rent-A-Car, who, as you know, is owned by the wonderful Taylor family. And so when they announced that they were getting a Major League Soccer team, I wanted to get involved. It was really the mix of all my passions. It was soccer, the sport I love and played. It was St. Louis, driven by a St. Louis ownership group where I'm born and raised. And I really felt like this digital transformation space was an area that sports as an industry was really lacking. So I started out as a consultant 4 years ago, helping the ownership group shape how we would be organized. And this idea of an experience office came about, that a lot of very progressive, fast-moving brands like Disney and Nordstrom and Facebook and Spotify, they all have an experience officer, and really was just say that organization manages all the touch points with consumers, and in our case, our fans. So ultimately, all the things you described, Justin, from game day to the food experience to our social channels, like fans find City in a variety of different ways, physically and digitally. And the experience office was really set up to be the center point or the commonality between all of those entities.
Yeah, now I think that's a perfect way to kind of finish up on that. Is if you think about it, and now I'm trying to remember. I was an intern back at Worldwide, and it may have been when you guys were actually implementing those iPads within Panera. If I'm not mistaken, you guys were helping drive them through that process, which if anybody's going into a bread co in St. Louis nowadays, that is the best way to order. You're going in and using that interface. And I think you obviously then kind of tailored that into the way that we have the City app today as well.
That's right. Yeah. And it was, if we could create something from scratch, like we had the opportunity to do here, not just as a physical stadium, but a brand that honestly, as a club, we launched during a global pandemic. So everything was digital. So it was borrowing a lot of lessons learned that I gathered in my career from a lot of different industries over the past decade, and putting that into our own recipe. And I think you see a lot of those elements, not just in digital ticketing, but mobile order ahead, and the things we're doing around personalization and bring Apple TV into the fold. And there's a lot, I think, very, very interesting things that I wasn't quite sure where they would lead to 10 years ago, but have all kind of found themselves as a part of a soccer club, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, and everybody that I talk to in St. Louis, I mean, if you like soccer or not, the amount of people that go to the stadium and leave with, wow, that was a hell of an experience. And I really do. And that's the word they use. And I think that's a massive, massive thanks to you for all of this. And I mean, obviously the play on the field has been ups and downs throughout the season, but the experience has always been there. And I think that's absolutely awesome. And I would kind of like to touch on real quick. I know you've touched on a lot of the different larger things that we worked on. What is like a day-to-day role for you? And maybe that's too broad of a question. Obviously you're juggling a lot of things at once with how quickly digital's moving and how quickly the MLS is moving as well. But what does a day-to-day kind of look for you?
I think it really is just kind of being the quarterback of the experience. And so, I mentioned a number of the teams that sit under us, our creative organization. We have an in-house agency of about 13 people, and that's, copywriters, videographers, photographers. And then we also have a digital side of our own business, folks that manage our websites, our mobile apps, our social channels. We have a marketing organization, the live experience part, which, is game day and how that comes alive. So I think my job is while all of those organizations have to be brilliant in the things that they specialize in, my job is to be the connective tissue between them, because I think we do a lot of things that are above average, and that's the goal for the individual departments. But when you put a lot of above average things together, it creates an exponential effect for our fans. And I think those are the things that people notice at game day when they talk about the experience. They're not really able to articulate what was great about it. It just made them feel good. And I think that's the culmination of a lot of little things coming together. So I really view that as my job, as making sure that there is connective tissue between all those parts and everyone's working together for these outsized impacts.
Yeah. And I think the ones that really come to mind on some of mine is the card stunts that we do. We got the rally towels, we got the smoke bombs, we got the pyrotechnics, we got the guys dropping in from the sky, which I'm sure really upset the grass guy as they're kind of sliding their butts a good 30 yards across the field. But just having that fan experience is something that I think is well and above other different parks or across the US. And I was just talking with Mark a little bit earlier that he thought you'd like this as well. I just went to Children's Mercy Park for the first time this past weekend, and I called them kind of like the little brother to us. I think everything they have is good, but it's a little bit smaller and just a little bit less than what we have in St. Louis. I think that's a huge thanks to you as well. Yeah.
No, that's great. And it's, I think every game day is a chance for us to do something that's 20% different than the last game. So, every game, there's new people in the building, and that might be their first City Park experience. So that's why, we want the surprise and delight of our, guest of the match, or we want to keep people guessing, is our gate giveaway going to be a flag or a card stunt? So I think those are the things that, as we settle into season 2, 80% of the experience is, I think, very operationally efficient at this point. But it's that last 20% that every single time you come to City Park, you should feel something new.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to also ask about is, and I've touched on it a couple of times, for anybody that's listening and doesn't have the City app, you need to go download and get it right now. I know Matt's already mentioned ordering food ahead, ordering drinks, and kind of showing a map throughout the park. What are some other things that you would say you'd like to highlight that maybe people that have the app already are kind of overlooking, or someone that's downloading the app should really use outside of the food or drink? Or honestly, if that's the main part, I would not be surprised, because it is one of the best features.
Our adoption is crazy for a sports club. And that's, again, I think we do a lot of things well. The other side of that coin is we're new. And so being able to launch with a mobile app and really condition our fans that this is the quickest, easiest, and best way to experience City Park, where we don't have to, if the stadium existed for 50 years and then the mobile app came out, we'd be reversing behavior, which is always is an inopportune way to do that. So the fact that it's new, inside our building, 80% of fans are using the City app to get in, to pay for food, et cetera. So with that adoption, we have a really good idea on what people like and what they don't like. So we are really leaning hard into personalization. So you'll see on game day, we have a new feature called the City Guide, which will kind of be a bit of an interactive know before you go, where it'll get you ready for the City Park experience. Do you have a credit card connected? Do you have your tickets connected? Here are mobile ahead eateries that are by your seats. So I think it's those types of things that we're starting to get really, really good at, of automating and personalizing that communication. And next year, we're going to introduce some things around loyalty and a point-based system that will really, really supercharge that. So we're really, really excited.
That's awesome to hear, because like I mentioned earlier, I think the way that city's evolving and just digitally across the U.S. and the world is something that I feel like your job is new, something new every day. You got to be staying fresh and staying on top of it. So it's great to hear that we're already forward looking into the next season as well. One last thing I wanted to kind of touch on, the CXO experience. I think it was late May this year, we signed a deal with Samsung to where we were able to kind of enhance City Park. Kind of touch on that and where that is. Kind of is that fully integrated already with the stadium? Is there anything else still coming, or kind of how that came to be and how we were chosen to be that connector with Samsung?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. I think it's a relationship that's still evolving, but I think the thing that is important to mention there is certainly, our founding level partners are these are big global St. Louis companies. It's Enterprise Rent-A-Car, it's Purina, it's Worldwide Technology. And so really for the corporate community to show up and support this team is unthinkable and amazing. But now that we're entering our second year, to have global companies that are not headquartered in St. Louis, like Cisco, like Samsung, and a few others that are coming, are providing that outside in validation that we're on the right track and our technology story is worth investing into. So, one of the things we wanted to do with technology is we had an idea of where we wanted to go, but the fragmentation in sports is insane. The amount of products that are sold to solve an individual task are plentiful, but then those little products don't connect to each other to provide that, outsized impact. And so we partner with a very small select group, and Samsung is one of them, that really any digital screen in our stadium, from video boards, LED boards to massive displays in Ultra Club and Pitch Club, they're all provided by Samsung. And so what we get there is not only really a best-in-class digital display, but now a connected ecosystem where we're starting to do more moments of exclusivity and takeover. So when we score a goal, all of these systems are communicating together. Or when we're fortunate enough to have the sundown before kickoff and we turn the lights out and everything goes city red. All of these things are additive to the experience instead of being fragmented displays. So I think that's why I'm excited about, the Samsung relationship in particular, is not just from the technology side, but really a global company that is coming in and paying attention to what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that was one thing that I've noticed is with the sun staying lighter, it's kind of harder to get that real city red feel, because it's still like bright out when we kick off at 7:30. So looking forward to those fall games and turning it back to city red.
Me too.
I do have one last kind of segment I want to touch on. I think it's probably the most prevalent right now and kind of top of everyone's mind is the Leagues Cup versus Open Cup stuff. So for anybody listening, obviously the Open Cup, MLS is not being a part of technically from a first team perspective in totality. There are some teams that have made it through, and you look at MLS Next Pro teams that are in there as well. I just wanted to kind of have the conversation with you, Matt. Kind of what was the decision with MLS? How much was City involved in that? And kind of if I understand it correctly, it's something that obviously everybody at City Park still wants, with the history in St. Louis. Not only just St. Louis, but the history in soccer as a whole. How did that kind of progress to where we are today, to where we're only in the Leagues Cup tournament coming up this weekend?
Yeah, and I think it's important to, break this down a bit, where for those that are tuned into the history of soccer in St. Louis and St. Louis's role in the growth of soccer here domestically, that, the U.S. Open Cup, for us is a valuable tournament. It's a part of our legacy. We very much wanted to participate in the tournament this year. The way that the rules shook out was, we did qualify for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, given our position atop the Western Conference last year. So because of our participation in that, we weren't able to participate in the Open Cup tournament this year. And we viewed that as a disappointment. We very much wanted to participate and made that opinion known with the league. But we are one of 29 teams in the league. And so they're looking to really form standards, not only with participation in the Open Cup, but standards that we can now drive moving forward for the Leagues Cup being a new tournament. So it's one of these, bit of a rock and a hard place for us that we wanted to participate in this tournament. We weren't able to. And so what we've done is we've been vocal with our opinion to the league, and have also been very transparent with our supporter groups in setting up conversations, not only with Major League Soccer, but also U.S. Soccer, who now are the main rights holder of the Open Cup tournament. And I think we'll be involved in not only hearing how they got to their position this year, but now can view St. Louis as a city and a stakeholder to help shape what our participation and others might be moving forward. So there's kind of the soccer aspect of it, but it would be remiss if I didn't mention the other part of it is just simply that this is a mid-season tournament, Open Cup and Leagues Cup, and there's a majority of our fan base that this is a new thing for them. Because if you're a baseball fan or a hockey fan, and now you have fallen in love with soccer, because of City's presence in St. Louis, you're not familiar with what a midseason tournament even is. And so I think this is our second year in the league. Leagues Cup, this is only the second year running. We're still, yourself included, Justin, still doing a bit of education on what are the rules and who qualifies, who are we playing. So there's a bit of both sides that we're working through at the moment. And I'm just excited to get back to City Park. And I think these midseason opportunities for us this year, especially, is a chance to reset and kind of to get excited about something new.
Yeah, for anybody that's not aware, so the Leagues Cup, the next 2 games coming up, we have a break for the MLS regular season over the next month or so. We do have 2 automatic for sure games in Leagues Cup. We will have this Saturday against FC Dallas, and then the Sunday following, not the day after, 8 days later, against FC Suarez down from Liga MX. So if you have not been able to get to City Park yet and experience everything that Matt has been putting together, this is the time to go. Do you guys have anything? I know you're already saying you don't want to give away any of the exciting parts, but I've heard you guys may be working on some interesting things or some new things that you'll be able to kind of go with for Leagues Cup as well.
Yeah. And, I mentioned, this serendipity of, Leagues Cup is right around the corner. Fans are still learning about it. There's some that are still kind of disappointed we're not in Open Cup. But so put all of that aside for a minute. We have 3 new players joining the side, the squad, that are substantial. You saw 2 of them against Sporting KC and Cedric and JGR, and we'll add Marcel Hartl to that. So this is the first chance for fans to see them in action in City Red at City Park. So I think that alone is reason enough to come check out the game on Saturday. And then we're also adding different elements. So, the fact that education is still needed around this tournament, we take kind of a product mindset to that, where if fans don't understand the product, we need to do a better job marketing it. So one of the things we're going to do is for the players entering the stadium, usually they enter, they park at the training center right across the street, and then they walk underground into the stadium. We're going to actually bring that above ground a little bit more visible, and that player drop off and procession into the stadium will happen in Lufuse Plaza, the east of our stadium. So players will arrive together in a bus. They'll proceed in, with the street team, with kids, et cetera, and really create more of a college game day environment that's a bit more of a festival, and just kind of play into kind of the Leagues Cup go to market, which I think will be really fun and exciting for fans.
That is so cool. I would say that's one of the things, like we said, if you have not already made it, where Matt is here to continue to add to the experience as you're there, get down to St. Louis. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful weekend. I think it's mid to high 80s and sunny on a Saturday night, 8 p.m. Get down and see them play FC Dallas. Matt, if I were to ask, I know that you guys had your meeting you mentioned with a couple of the different fan groups. Do we have some optimism that maybe we'll get some changes in the Open Cup next season? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but anything that at least it sounds like conversations are starting, and maybe something that we could hopefully look forward to in years to come?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we want to be a part of that conversation regardless, but I think, the way that this was communicated out was very much, it seemed like, Open Cup and Leagues Cup were at odds or competitive, and U.S. Soccer and Major League Soccer were competitive and not really seeing eye to eye on this. That's not the case at all. Is these 2 groups are working together to hopefully provide a financial model that is more sustainable and able to, whether it's broadcast, the marketing of it, what that does for fixture congestion, like all these things need to be looked at. But I think that, the fan base and the competition of Open Cup and Leagues Cup, there's room for both. And I am, in these conversations we've had with both organizations, as well as our supporter groups the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty bullish on the future and St. Louis's role in both competitions.
Yeah, and you guys, I know, said he put out the Instagram just maybe a week or so ago, and mentioning at the end of that Diego Gigliani, the GM, has reaffirmed the club's desire and commitment to participate in the Open Cup. So that is something that the club is still hoping to get behind, and I think everybody else is as well. But extremely excited. Do not look over this Leagues Cup coming up for everybody. Get to the stadium. Tickets are not as expensive as our regular season games. This is a perfect time to bring your family on a nice night in St. Louis before school gets back into it. Go see these new players. We're going to see Marcel Hartel. We have not been able to see him yet. Obviously, we saw Jake Gerwood-Reich on Saturday, but this was in Kansas City, him and Toyer. So no one in St. Louis has been able to see these guys. Everybody needs to get out to City Park and enjoy this. Matt, I want to thank you very much for coming on. Is there any last or final words you want to say?
No, I mean, just, I think now more than ever, I think the boys need our support. And what better chance to do it than Saturday at City Park. So I think there's an energy, in our office and around the training center. So I'm excited. And, Justin, thanks for all you guys do. I think the pod's been great. You guys have been great supporters of the club. So just thank you. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Absolutely. With a chief experience officer like yourself, you make it pretty easy for us to hype up the park. So we really appreciate it. But thank you all for listening. Thank you, Mr. Matt Sebek, for coming on, and all for City.
Thank you.